Ride the signal through the unknown. This is the cryptic current.
In extreme cold, the body's core temperature can drop below 95 degrees Fahrenheit, leading to hypothermia. This condition impairs judgment and motor skills, making survival decisions critical. Animal carcasses, when frozen, can provide insulation against wind and ambient cold. The thermal mass of a large body retains residual heat, slowing heat loss in a survivor. Such shelters are a documented last resort method in polar survival literature. The decision involves weighing immediate survival against psychological and ethical boundaries. In sub-zero environments, wind chill can make temperatures feel 20 to 30 degrees colder. This accelerates heat loss, making any form of shelter a matter of hours, not days. Arctic blizzards can reduce visibility to near zero within minutes, creating complete whiteout conditions. Temperatures in these environments can plummet to -40 degrees Celsius or lower, where exposed skin freezes in under 10 minutes. Travel in such remote regions often involves crossing frozen lakes, tundra, or sparse boreal forest with minimal shelter. The sudden onset of severe weather is a known hazard, as Arctic systems can develop and intensify rapidly with little warning. Survival in these conditions depends on immediate action to prevent hypothermia, which sets in when core body temperature drops. Wind chill dramatically increases the rate of heat loss, making a -20 degrees Celsius day feel like -40 degrees Celsius or colder with strong gusts. Isolation is a critical factor, as rescue in such vast, sparsely populated areas can take days, even under ideal conditions. This scenario represents one of the most hostile environments on Earth for human survival, where standard preparation often proves inadequate. In such extreme conditions, visibility can drop to zero, making navigation impossible. Temperatures plummet rapidly, creating a lethal environment for any exposed human. High winds create wind chill factors that make even moderate cold temperatures deadly. Standard survival shelters like tents or snow caves become impossible to construct in violent conditions. Hypothermia begins when the body loses heat faster than it can produce it. This heat loss triggers a cascade of system failures as core temperature continues to drop. Without intervention, hypothermia progresses through distinct stages from mild to severe. Complete immobilization in such conditions creates a race against time before systems fail. In extreme winter survival, shelter is the immediate priority after addressing injuries. Standard procedure in such conditions involves digging a snow trench or constructing a snow cave. These structures use snow's insulating properties, which can maintain an interior temperature significantly warmer than the outside air. However, reports from this incident indicate the snowpack was unsuitable for such construction. Wind-packed snow can become dense and icy, making excavation with basic tools nearly impossible. Alternatively, the snow may have been too shallow or powdery, collapsing under its own weight when hollowed out. This created a critical shelter problem, forcing a deviation from standard survival protocols. Without viable snow shelter, exposure to wind chill and wet conditions accelerates hypothermia risk dramatically. In extreme cold, the body's primary threat is rapid heat loss through convection and radiation. A solid object like a frozen carcass disrupts wind flow, creating a low-pressure zone directly behind it. This phenomenon is similar to how a building or rock formation provides shelter from the wind. The critical survival element was not the carcass's material, but the still airspace it created. Still air is a poor conductor of heat, acting as a natural insulator. By positioning themselves in this air pocket, a person reduces convective heat loss significantly. This principle is why snow caves or simple debris shelters can be life-saving in winter environments. The frozen state of the animal prevented decomposition and associated hazards, making it a viable windbreak. Ultimately, this scenario demonstrates using the immediate environment to manipulate microclimates for survival. This survival technique, while extreme, demonstrates a fundamental principle of thermal protection. Still air acts as an effective insulator because it lacks the convective currents that carry heat away. The body cavity provided a small chamber where air movement was minimized. This created a microclimate significantly warmer than the outside ambient temperature. In survival situations, even a few degrees of temperature preservation can be critical. The principle is similar to how animals burrow, or how insulated clothing traps air layers. Wind chill dramatically increases heat loss, so shielding from it is a priority. This method, though a last resort, exploits basic physics to delay hypothermia. The decision to approach the carcass presented a critical physiological trade-off. The physical exertion required to reach and process the carcass would generate body heat and likely induce sweating. In freezing conditions, sweat poses a severe danger as it can rapidly lower body temperature when it evaporates or soaks into clothing. This moisture can compromise the insulating properties of survival gear, accelerating the onset of hypothermia. Simultaneously, the individual would have been acutely aware of the carcass acting as a potential attractant for other predators in the area. Scavengers and carnivores are drawn to such sites by scent, creating a secondary threat beyond the immediate environmental conditions. The risk calculation thus balanced immediate caloric need against two compounding survival hazards, environmental exposure, and potential animal confrontation. This type of risk assessment is a documented pattern in survival scenarios where resource acquisition itself introduces new dangers. This decision to prioritize immediate hypothermia over longer-term threats represents a calculated risk in survival scenarios. Hypothermia can become life-threatening within hours in cold environments, making it a primary concern that often requires immediate action. Secondary threats in survival situations might include dehydration, starvation, or injury, which typically develop more gradually than hypothermia. The 72-hour window mentioned represents a critical period in many survival situations, though the exact timeline here is undocumented. Without verified specifics on location, identity, or preparation level, we cannot assess the individual's exact circumstances. Survival preparation levels can range from trained professionals with proper gear to completely unprepared individuals facing unexpected situations. This lack of documentation is common in survival cases where rescuers arrive after the critical period has passed. The decision-making process in extreme survival often involves weighing immediate physiological threats against longer-term risks. The psychological impact of extreme cold exposure remains difficult to fully quantify. One common misconception is that being inside a structure provides warmth in freezing conditions. This assumption is incorrect. Interior spaces can still maintain sub-freezing temperatures. Without active heating, enclosed areas offer minimal protection from extreme cold. This misconception can be dangerous, leading to inadequate preparation for survival situations. Understanding thermal dynamics is crucial for survival in extreme conditions. The body's core temperature can drop rapidly, even in sheltered locations. Proper insulation and heat sources are necessary to maintain survivable temperatures. In extreme cold, the body's priority shifts from generating warmth to preserving existing heat. At -40 degrees, hypothermia can set in within minutes as the body loses heat faster than it can produce it. The goal isn't to create warmth, but to slow heat loss enough to reach a marginally survivable temperature range. Even at -10 or -20 degrees Celsius, the environment remains dangerously cold, but survival becomes theoretically possible with proper insulation. This approach focuses on insulation, shelter, and reducing exposure, core principles of wilderness survival. Contrary to some assumptions, this is not a standard survival technique for most environments, but a specific response to extreme cold. The physiological mechanism relies on slowing conductive, convective, and radiative heat transfer to the environment. In practice, this means seeking any form of windbreak, using dry insulation, and minimizing skin exposure. This act of last resort appears in only a few documented survival accounts. No modern survival manual lists it as a primary or recommended course of action. The immediate physical danger often came not from the act itself, but from the environment. Hypothermia and exposure to extreme cold and wind were the primary physiological threats. A deceased animal, while a potential resource, introduced significant secondary risks. Pathogens from decay or injury during processing could lead to fatal infection without medical care. This created a brutal paradox. A possible means to stave off starvation also carried a high chance of introducing a deadly agent. Such decisions represent the extreme edge of human endurance, where every option carries profound danger. After the immediate danger of the storm passed, the survivor faced 3 critical secondary risks. Moisture management became crucial, as wet clothing and gear could lead to hypothermia, even after temperatures rose. Mental shock presented a significant challenge, as the psychological impact of isolation and danger could impair decision-making. The physical challenge of extricating oneself required assessing injuries, gathering scattered gear, and navigating unfamiliar terrain. This case underscores non-negotiable rules for wilderness travel, with communication being the first layer of safety. A personal locator beacon or satellite messenger could have prevented the entire ordeal by enabling immediate rescue coordination. These devices use satellite networks to transmit distress signals to emergency services regardless of cellular coverage. Unlike cell phones, which rely on local towers, satellite messengers provide global coverage in remote areas. Your gear list is just the beginning. In survival scenarios, equipment provides the baseline tools for endurance. Weather becomes the main character in these environments, dictating every decision and movement. In extreme conditions, forecasts offer guidelines rather than guarantees due to rapidly changing atmospheric patterns. Mountain regions can experience multiple weather systems in a single day, from sunshine to blizzard conditions. Ocean environments present unique challenges, where weather systems can develop with little warning over open water. This unpredictability requires constant adaptation, as conditions can shift from manageable to life-threatening within hours. Survival experts emphasize that understanding weather patterns is as crucial as any physical equipment. The relationship between weather and survival remains one of the most fundamental dynamics in extreme environments. A margin for error, extra food, fuel, and days is essential in any survival scenario. This buffer accounts for unforeseen delays, injuries, or equipment failure that can derail even the best laid plans. In aviation and maritime contexts, this principle is formalized as carrying reserves beyond the calculated minimums. Survival is a mental game, where psychological resilience often determines the outcome. The decision to act, especially in crisis, requires overcoming a profound natural aversion to risk and the unknown. This aversion is a primal instinct for self-preservation that must be managed, not ignored. Training and preparation help rewire this response, allowing for calculated action under extreme stress. The interplay between practical resources and mental fortitude forms the core of enduring extreme situations. Survival often depends on the ability to rationally assess terrible options and act decisively. This rational assessment involves evaluating limited resources, environmental threats, and potential escape routes under extreme stress. Decisive action then requires executing a chosen plan despite fear, injury, or exhaustion, where hesitation can be fatal. The lesson is in preparation. The real story isn't about the carcass. It's about the cascade of events that led to that point. This cascade often begins with overlooked details: a missed weather report, inadequate supplies, or a dismissed safety procedure. Each small failure compounds, creating a situation where survival hinges on that initial rational assessment and decisive action. Thus, preparation is not just about gear. It's a mental framework for anticipating and managing the chain of events before they become catastrophic. Survival in extreme environments depends on recognizing specific hazards unique to each setting. A single plan is insufficient. Successful strategies require multiple, adaptable backup options. Conditions can deteriorate from manageable to lethal with startling speed, leaving little margin for error. The core principles for enduring such crises are brutally pragmatic. First, secure immediate shelter. Getting out of the wind is critical, as wind chill exponentially accelerates heat loss from the body. Preserving core body temperature becomes the paramount, non-negotiable objective for survival. These events demonstrate the severe physiological limits the human body can be pushed to and still endure. The ultimate goal is starkly simple: to take every extreme measure necessary to see another dawn.
If the signal hooked you, subscribe and catch the next ripple.